All right, I haven't eaten yet today, so we got to move on.
So
to
yeah,
another topic.
no, have I? Well, let's
Unless we're
actually.
wrapping up here.
Well, continuing on the food topic in a way, because I was thinking of an analogy for what the Republican Party has been feeding us, not just for the past 9 years, but for long before that. But it really came into focus once we had a black president. Is we're talking about degrees of white supremacy. It seems to be that's what we're talking about with the current administration. With there are some people on the right who are willing to sit around and take it and make excuses for Trump. And like this week, as so many people were stepping down because the president coddles Nazis, we saw prominent Jewish members of the cabinet like Mnuchin and Cohen. And people who are, Jared Kushner even, who's not a member of any cabinet or, any official member of any committees, but still high up in the administration, still somewhat Jewish. And these guys are still standing by Trump. And the closest analogy I could come up with was rat turds in hot dogs. It's like if someone came to you with a plate full of rat shit and said, hey, eat this. I would say 99.9% of the people are going to say no. And that 0.1% of the people are going to say, is this fear factor? How much do I stand to win? But for years in hot dogs, in chocolate, in peanut butter, if you look up online how much... I don't even remember what they're calling it anymore, but let's say animal matter, be it rat hairs, be it rat turds. There is X amount that is allowed in all of our food. You find it more in foods like hot dogs where it's processed meat, or scrapple.
Well, that's what you get with the FDA and government regulation.
Right. Yeah. You got to. All regulations are bad, including the ones that keep rat shit out of our food. Right. Regulation is bad. But the point that I'm making, the analogy is that whereas pretty much everybody is going to find a plate full of rat shit inedible. Well, you mix a little bit of it in with the food that we think is all right. Or in the case of hot dogs, the food that we think is all American. And people eat it. Right. People eat it up. So as a country, how much rat shit are we willing to eat?
Oh, the rat shit.
Metaphorically now. Because I was at the Dodger game on Wednesday and saw that literally there is no end to the amount of rat shit that people are willing to eat. But metaphorically, as a nation, how much are we willing to eat, and how much should we be expected to eat?
Well, I mean, I think that people are definitely, this has become a flashpoint that's waking people up and saying, where everybody has to really admit what's going on behind. No matter what, the small, hopefully ever smaller base, gets outnumbered. But I think most people, they're realizing you got to change the diet, obviously, as fast as possible. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to be a...
I think that you're going to, until people really start to pay attention to what's going on. I mean, it just becomes a conversation that a lot of folks don't want to have, and so they'd rather eat the shit. I mean, they don't want to have that conversation. I can remember being at work and the guy said, "Hey, Shipp, I'd like to discuss affirmative action with you." And I said to him, I said, "Only if we can discuss history." And he said, "No." I said, "Well, then I don't want to discuss it." And he got upset. He said, "Why?"
Is it a white guy?
Yeah. He said, I said, "You wouldn't need affirmative action if you made a level playing field."
See, when he said no, my response would have been, then you don't want to talk about affirmative action.
Right.
You don't mean what you just said.
Right. Well, because, he was taking some class, and I said, "You're not learning because you don't want to look at what is and what's in front of it and why do we need it." Okay, you didn't. I mean, and I said because it's going to snowball into other things. you're going to say, well, telling blacks that you wanted at one time you wanted segregation. Okay, we said, okay, we'll work in our own group. We'll be with our own people. We created our own Black Wall Street, and what did you do? You burned it down. You burned down every fucking thing we ever tried to create, and then you say, oh, well, you need integration. No, not segregation. Integrate. Well, then we integrated with you, and then you said, we don't really want you. Yeah, it was just a way to keep you from doing and gathering to yourselves, which you don't want, So you can't win. We want to just keep you where you are. Every time you try to grow, you're not going to grow.
Well, and I think historically, the point needs to be made because we've sort of been talking around this, but haven't really said it explicitly on this episode today, is that a lot of white people today, and people who look white, like me, and I've said it before on this show so many times, but if you're a new listener, because I am Jewish and from the Midwest, I was told plenty of times that I am not white. And I'm fine with that. I do not want to be a part of that club. But the fact remains that I look this color and I have an anglicized white name that was given to my great-grandfather when he came over here from Ukraine. So whereas a lot of white people and folks who are like me would like to be able to say, well, we didn't have anything to do with slavery in America. We didn't do that. My people weren't even over here during that time. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is we have benefited from it, mm-hmm. whether you did it consciously or not. The system has been set up to benefit us. And whereas not everything is zero sum, there are winners and losers, and this is one of those cases where when there are winners, there do have to be losers. There are people who are not getting what the winning side is getting. And you need to recognize that. If you're white and saying, well, I didn't have anything to do with slavery, no, you didn't, but you're still benefiting from it. And you benefiting from that and not speaking up from the people who the system is working against, that's what the kids are calling white privilege.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a bad thing. Just in case anyone is unclear on that. So we sort of backtracking in the conversation a little bit. What does the abuse of free speech say? And Ron, you were talking about how we could learn a lot from Germany and their response to what they've done since World War II. And there are things I am on the fence. I understand the reasoning behind, glorifying Nazi regalia and Nazi history, making that against the law in Germany, but it does butt up against free speech. And I think with any of our constitutionally provided freedoms, be it freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to bear arms, as anyone in a post-Spider-Man world knows, with great freedom and great power comes great responsibility.
Sure. And when I said the Germany thing, I wasn't necessarily... I was mostly speaking towards the way they confront what happened.
No, absolutely.
They do that in a way that we really don't do here. We kind of tie it up on and put a bow on it. I mean, we all remember in grade school when we were tracing a hand to make a turkey, and the whitewash version we were given of what really went down, and what we did to the people that were here first. There's still I'd be willing to bet my gull. There's still places in the South that try to make it out like slavery wasn't really that bad and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think we've gotten better.
I mean, hell, who was it? Bill O'Reilly, who, that
the White House,
bastion of free thinking, who said, well, the White House was built by slaves, but they were well fed and they had a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I feel like it it's gotten better compared to probably 20, 30 years ago, but it still goes on. So, that in regards to Germany, I mean, they do not sugarcoat what went on.
No, I think
they do not. I mean, they have memorials everywhere.
It says a lot about the world that in the same week that the American president coddled and made excuses for Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists and white nationalists. And while he was very quick to condemn Muslims after the attack in Barcelona, it took him 3 days to give a half-hearted shout-out to say Nazis are bad.
Well, I mean, we've had terrorists.
And then he backtracked on that 2 days, or the day after that. In the same week that the American president did that, a tourist got punched in Germany for giving a Nazi salute at a bar.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Germans are coming down harder on Nazis than the American president is.
You can't even do that without getting arrested in Germany. If you do the salute, you get arrested. I mean, if someone sees it, you will get arrested. Like, they have no, but they confront what happened. And they say, this is the saddest chapter of human history. And if we don't talk about it, if we don't confront it, if we don't, make sure that, I mean, it will happen again. We have to make sure it never happens again. That's the attitude we need to have here. And we need to have it about actual Nazis. It's
who
not,
are in our midst and
who are
in
our
our government.
midst, who live among us and are generally hiding behind closed doors, but they're not hiding behind closed doors right now because they have a leader now. They have a leader in the president. They have a sympathizer in the president, and they know that. So they're feeling empowered right now, and that needs to end immediately. And I'm a very anti-violent guy. I'm a non-violent guy. I do think that some violence will be inevitable. Of course, I don't think that self-defense and violence are the same thing. But I do think there's going to be some inevitable conflict. But there's also a lot of non-violent, powerful things you can do. Like if you're at a protest and you see these neo-Nazis, you take out your phone, you turn the camera on, and you spread that around. There's a lot of power in that. That's where you expose these people because they're cowards. They need a racist figurehead at the top to feel empowered. Right now they feel empowered. That's going to change. But in the meantime, you expose these people. Well, then they're not empowered anymore. Then they're scared again.
Right.
Because they don't want their identities to be shown. Why? Because they're Nazis. Oh, and by the way, call them Nazis.
Right. Well, I think you make a very good point that, and like I said, I had a friend of mine say to me, would you talk to a Nazi? I'd talk to him because I want to know how they think. Because I know you can't be born that way. Whoever the guy is who taught you this shit, I mean, he had to teach you that at a young age. Like the dickhead who's, used to punch, who ran over the people. And, he punched his own mother. Okay? And that, I mean, obviously, she had no control over him, and she said, he was a bad seed. Because at 13, 14, I mean, he socked his mom and told her, and then, he was off, killing animals and everything. So he was on his way. He is where he is. He's in jail. I mean, if you look at his background, you knew that this guy was just waiting to do his grand finale. He had it coming. He was going to do that and go to jail. But these people are taught these things.
Yeah, and it's by the book brainwashing.
Yeah,
it's propaganda 101. They have their magazines. The internet has made it easier. They spread the propaganda. I mean, American History X. It's a fictional movie, yes, but I mean, it really outlines how this stuff works, and I think is a very accurate historical fiction account. Like, that's how it works. You prey on young, impressionable people that are susceptible to this kind of stuff. Maybe their family life isn't necessarily great. Maybe they suffered a tragedy that would make them more susceptible to buy into something that's complete and utter bullshit.
Right.
And you prey on them, and you recruit them when they're young, and you try to get them on board with this stuff, and that's how it happens.
When a person goes through hard times, it's easy to go, see, they're the reason why you can't get a job, because you're going through. No, motherfucker, it's you. Unless, whereas every time you're trying to abide by the rules and do the right thing, but yet because of the color of your skin, see, you can't get away from that one because someone's not. It's not.